This is part 2 of my zombie story plotting adventure videos. The first one I will have linked below if you are just stumbling onto this one now. And if you've watched that first, then go ahead and enjoy.
So, big fat question for myself. How does John know that zombie kids are already dead? That is a good question. That's something that we definitely need to think about. We're going to put it right over here. Maybe, perhaps, I could go with, like, he sees one with a missing heart, which would indicate that obviously that poor kid is dead. There's no coming back from having a missing heart. So I think I just answered my own question. Sees. Actually, let's go with an adult. Missing. With a missing heart. Okay. Let's say John sees an adult with a missing heart, but we're going to throw that up here. So John knows that they're dead, but Paul refuses to believe it. And that makes all of this much more understandable and interesting. Why John is saying, just get rid of them. Like, we have to stop them. So at the midpoint, John finally realizes that he's just got to get over it. He's got to be willing to actually kill these kids. He knows this whole time that they're already dead, but here he emotionally recognizes that he's not going to be able to save the kids that he's got and himself and the parents that are with him without actually killing all of these zombie kids and Paul. Paul's going to hunt him forever, so he has to kill Paul, and he has to be okay with killing the zombie kids. And Paul, let's say they're friends. Let's make this really complicated. So, Paul, his friend. Okay. So, this is what he's going to have to come to terms with. He's going to have to come to terms with the fact that he's going to have to kill these kids that are zombies and his friend in order to save the kids that are alive. Okay, so the build-up is maybe playing games. Let's call this let's make this a calm. So we've got all of these big building sections. Let's create something calm right here that's going to lead to this moment where he realizes this, where this is, because a lot of this is external, this needs to be internal. So let's lead into the internal here by saying playing calm game with kids. They sleep. So we have like this quiet introspective, like it is in the PM. So this is nighttime now. And let's say this all happens. I don't know. We'll figure that out. We'll figure out timeline later for like actual amount of time spent. But it's PM. The kids are calm. They're all sleeping. They can still hear the zombies down the hall, but it's kind of all started to quiet down and hush. Like everything's kind of settled down for a little minute. And then maybe one of the abandoned kids, like kid tells John he loves him. Let's say this is a kid that he's had in his class all year. It's a kid who had family problems at home. So we're gonna go with, here's another character. Okay, so we've got a kid who loves John. Problems at home. And maybe this comes in up here. Has rebellious at school. Because he's acting out. Let's say he's had in conflict. But John keeps them safe. Now loves John. Okay, let's go with that. And it could be potentially that, like, this is a teenager who came to get his brother. I like that idea, actually. Maybe teen who broke in to find brother. Okay. Say this is a teen who came in to find his brother. Loves John for saving brother. There we go. That actually makes me very happy. I like that idea. Okay, and I keep saying he as a generic, but I will likely change genders as I go. It's just easier when plotting to throw in a bunch of guys because that has been the default in our culture for aeons. I would probably likely change John's character to a female just because I am a woman and it would be fun to write a woman who's stuck in this position, especially as a mom and looking at kids the way that I look at kids, both other people's kids and my kids. This would be a really, really tough situation to be in, which would make it more interesting to write and also more painful to write, but also more authentic to be read. Oh, I'm hitting the table and moving, you guys. I am very sorry. Okay, so let's get to here. Let's get to this end part. Pull this out from under these. Okay. So if we know that the most of the conflict is between Paul and John, and it involves this horde of, infected kids, but Paul has managed to stay alive somehow. We're going to have to figure out as we write it, or if I was going to write it, how Paul managed to stay alive and not get infected. But for now, we know that John finds a safe place for the kids, for the living kids, and it's where they're able to be quiet. So if Paul has this moment here, something has to break here. Something right here has to happen. Maybe there's like a car shows up of people show up looking for kids. Say that happens there. So what would be the fallout of these people showing up? So how this is set up, the 27 structure is that this top row here, and normally it's set up differently. It's like 3 and 3 and 3. And I think if you've seen my previous videos, you've seen this before. And instead of it being these lines, it's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and this is like twisted sideways. But normally these parts here, which is one of the reasons why this new setup that I'm using works. This is like the start of a new conflict, the climax of the new conflict, the resolution of a conflict. So, but I'm changing it up in here, and that's okay because these are guidelines. They are just guidelines anyway. We don't have to do it perfectly. What I think needs to happen is after they have this nice calm night where John kind of decides who he needs to be as a person in order to be able to save these kids and save himself. So something has to change here. Something major has to change when they wake up in the morning. And I'm thinking a car full of people showing up and looking for their kids introduces new characters, introduces new complications, them getting into the school and not getting bitten. What kind of chaos would this cause? Are they being loud? Are they trying to attract attention? Are they being quiet? If they're survivors from other places, they are likely have weapons. They likely have food because they've been surviving somewhere else. So they are likely more equipped than John and these kids. So more tools introduced. God, my handwriting is terrible, but more tools introduced. Whether that's tools in the form of people, tools in the form of guns, tools in the forms of, I always thought that if I was in a zombie apocalypse, one of the best things that you could ever have would be a shovel. Like that would, between a shovel and a pan, or a cast iron pan, like those two would probably be the things that I carried around the most, because they'd be the most useful in all situations. Whether you're dealing with zombies or dealing with things outside of zombies, they'd be very useful. That's just where my brain goes. Okay, so consequences of this. So let's say the consequences of this are that kid zombies riled again. Because in all these zombie movies, and I think that this actually makes perfect sense, once you've got a group full of zombies in a room, if there's nothing to stimulate them, they kind of go into a stasis, because they're not going to eat the dead people around them for whatever reason. So let's say if they're all zombies, then historically in all depictions of them, they're not going to attack each other. They're looking for live meat. So these zombie kids wake up. So we've got that. So then Paul gets creative and finds a way to break into, how did I put that? Into the barricaded hallway. So Paul gets creative and finds a way to help these zombie kids break into this hallway without getting himself bitten. I don't know how he's going to do it yet. That would be something that I would probably figure out while writing. But so this is going to have to be where John deals with a flood of zombie kids and parents coming at them. Okay. John and group deal with flood of zombies from hall. So maybe what they do is they once again try to leave the school. Maybe they climb onto the roof. That could be a thing that they do. Yeah, I'm thinking that that's probably what they're going to do, is they're going to have to climb onto the roof. Kids on roof. Yeah, that gets them out of the way. But unfortunately, that's not really, I don't want that to be where they end up staying, because I think that being on a roof is it's a little bit too easy of an escape. So how do we make it so that they decide to get off of the roof? Maybe they don't have enough food, supplies, so it's a supply problem. In the classroom, they had snacks. He had hoarded snacks that he kept for hungry kids, because he's a teacher and he loves his kids. So he's got snacks. So they've been surviving on the snacks in his classroom. And now they have a supply problem because they are on the roof. There's no water, there's no food, there's no toilets. It's not great. So I've got parents join John here. I'm thinking, because I had the parents that wanted to save their kids, their infected kids, with Paul. But I'm thinking at this point, Paul needs to be kind of working alone. Because nobody in their right mind would help Paul do this. Nobody. Like, Paul's gone. While John's become the hero that he didn't know he could be, Paul has devolved into a monster. So I'm thinking that the parents would join John as a consequence, perhaps, of him weaponizing the kids. So, if we've got the new visitors here and the parents joining Paul here, what could go here that would be something wildly unexpected? And I've got the classroom overrun. I think that's going to go in here. So we're switching this around. A little bit, which is fine. So the classroom is overrun. And they end up with the kids on the roof. So what would be the darkest moment? Maybe someone important dies, or maybe John himself gets bit. Let's go with that. John gets bit. Okay, so we're going to go with the rest of the story, knowing that John is going to die and turn at any point in time. He knows it. Everybody around him knows it. He's not going to hide it. He's a hero. He's not a liar. So he's going to tell everybody, I've been bit, so I'm going to lead the way. Let them attack me because I can be attacked. Okay, so we're definitely going to put John dies right here. That is the resolution that John will die, but he will not be a zombie when he dies. Somebody's going to help him. So, very obviously a tragedy. Let's go with that, though, for now. So John gets bit, and we know that John can only save the ones that he has, and he has to do it before he turns. Okay. Okay, so they find a new place for the living children, and John and a couple of the grown-ups create a plan. To clear okay. So John and the other parents create a plan to clear the school. So they know that the school is defensible. They know that it's got water. They know that it's got food. They know that it has medical equipment. So the school is actually a really great place to turn into a fortress, but they have to be able to get rid of the zombies. So, and I don't have any side plots, so I'm not worried about converging it with any of my side stories yet. This is just its own one story. So if we have a plot twist here or an unexpected hope, I'm still not sure what that's going to be. But I do know that the battle will be John and others luring zombies from school. So they're luring these zombies out of the school. They're going to have to kill a bunch of them. And that's just kind of the way that that's going to have to be. So they're luring the zombies from the school. The climax would be John and Paul showdown. So these two are going to fight it out. And Paul dies. Put that there. Okay. And then school clear. And kids safe. That's going to be the end of this. So let's say they get the school all boarded up. All the rooms with lots of windows closed off, and they get it all boarded up, and they get the kids. The kids are safe there, at least for a little while, at least until emergency services can come find them, if there are any left. So the only thing that we're really missing would be this unexpected hope. Okay, so let's go through the plot as it is. So, at the start, we see John at work. He's a teacher. He teaches 4th grade. John sees the first zombie, and then lockdown procedure starts, and John sees an adult in the hall without a heart. So he knows that they are walking corpses. So, somewhere in here, they meet up with Paul, and Paul tries to gather all the zombie kids into the gym. The Children of the Corn. I forgot I wrote that. That's funny. And then they have an argument. He and John have an argument about the cure because Paul believes they can be cured, and John knows that they are already dead. So then the group breaks apart. They try to get the living kids out of the school. They get to a bus, and then they get surrounded by zombies outside. They are saved by Paul with a megaphone. So Paul's still kind of almost redeemable in here, but not quite. And then a flood of zombies from the road. They run back into the school. John and the parents kill zombie kids, and they're on their own. So Paul is angry and decides that John would care about a cure if he was sick. Paul weaponizes the kids. Parents join John. I think I already have that over there. That's fine. This is plotting. Sometimes you're going to have repeat things. Yeah. I'm just going to pull that out. Okay, so Paul weaponizes the zombie kids. That would be a whole battle that needed to be dealt with. And John and the other parents are barricading the hallway. So then they have this kind of calm game with the kids where they're having this downtime. And one of the abandoned kids tells John he loves him. That's our older teenager kid whose kid brother is, in the room with them, and John's kept him safe and he loves him for that. John finally makes the decision that, he's not going to worry about killing the zombie kids anymore. He just has to save the ones that he's got. He's also going to have to kill Paul, his friend, because Paul is not going to let them escape and live while Paul is here watching over these zombie kids. So then in the morning, a car of people show up looking for their kids, which introduces more guns, more weapons, depending on, where you live. So I live in an interesting place. I live in a place where there's a blend of very, very liberal people. And when you get so far liberal, you have a bunch of people that are liberals with guns. And then I also have a whole lot of conservative people around, and they also have guns. So where I live, this is actually really, really plausible that a group of parents would show up with guns to the school to get their kids. Like, wildly plausible. So now we've got lots more guns, we've potentially got more food and water, and we've got more bodies, more grown-ups to help shield these living kids. We've also likely got some grieving adults here who find out that their kids are gone. So kid zombies. Oh, the kid zombies are riled again. I need to... Riled. There, you can read that now. So the kid zombies are riled again. They're awake. And then Paul gets creative and finds a way to break into the barricaded hallway without getting bit. John and the group deal with the zombies from the hallway, and the classroom is overrun. They lose some kids. They get the kids on the roof. Now they have a supply problem. Something happens here. We don't know what. And then John gets bit. So what would lead from them from the roof to John getting bit? Maybe suggestion of how to get food and water up to kids. Okay, so let's say maybe there's, a food truck outside or something like that. There's something nearby where they know that they could get this food for the kids if they go. So John and a group, let's see, John plus other adults go for supplies. Okay, and in the process, John gets bit. So John can save the one he has. So John realizes that he can save the one he has, but he has to do it before he turns. So he knows he's got to go on a kamikaze mission. Like, okay, I'm already dead. I'm already dying. So I don't need to keep me safe. I just need to stay alive long enough to save these kids. So he's going to find a safe place for the kids that's quiet. Okay, so John another play. Okay, so where's my safe place? I think they're still on the roof. So I think that's yeah, safe place goes there. Okay, so John and other adults create a plan to clear the school. So, okay, so let's say we've got John is sick, complicates things, heads out before he gets worse. Okay. So, what do we know about this ending? We now know that it takes the bitten quite a while from the time they get bit to the time that they die. This would have to be over the course of several hours. So, what I'm thinking is that the kid zombies were already sick, like something broke out in like the cafeteria. So okay, outbreak in cafeteria. And in the process, all of these kids who are on maybe their lunch or something get bitten. And let's say Paul is there. So Paul watches all of these kids get bitten and attacked, and some of them get killed, but a lot of them just get sick. So he's convinced that he can save them. He wants to save them because he couldn't save them there. Explains his story arc too. He wants to try to save these kids that he watched get bit, but he can't. So John sees his first zombie. So this is the inciting incident. This would be the key incident because that brings him into the story. So Paul gets to office to sound alarm. Okay. Okay. So lockdown starts. So Paul tries to gather the zombie kids. They start to turn. So let's say Paul tries to gather the kids in the gym, and they start to turn. Like they're in this for the long haul because no parents or anything have arrived to save them. So John starts getting obsessed with this idea of a cure as these kids start turning, or Paul does, and John knows that they're not going to have a cure. All of these kids that are sick are going to turn, and they need to get the kids who aren't bitten away from the kids who are bitten, and the group breaks apart. And then all of kids turns. Let's see. All of the kids are turned, slowly turn. Okay. So let's say they run back to the school and then break after. No. So the group breaks apart and okay. And then all of the kids turn and Paul's watching over them. Okay, so here is my very impromptu, didn't really think about it before I started, zombie story. It is definitely got a lot of cliches. It's also weirdly dark, just like everything else I write. Um, Now, whether or not I'm actually going to write this story is who knows? Who knows? But I hope you enjoyed this process. This is what this looks like for me. Only this is like one set of the story, and then I'll have like a subplot, and it'll be plotting from here to here in a completely different color. I'll move these off, and then add a completely different color of sticky note, and it'll be other people's kind of point of views or other things. And then what I will do is I will weave them together and how they interact with each other. Um, Actually in like a Google document. So I'll basically type them all up, and then I'll kind of move them around as I feel like they need to be moved around, and to get them to kind of fit together. Sometimes I do it by hand with the sticky notes, like take it on my big board, because I have a big board over here that I do this on, which has a lot more room than this. And I can kind of move them around on there and figure out exactly what order I want them to be in. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will be back next week.